Welcome back from final part, which is part 3. Let's continue. The famous symbol of the Ferrari race team is the Cavallino M20, prancing horse, black prancing stallion on a yellow shield, usually with the letters SF, for Scuderia Ferrari, with 3 stripes of green, white and red, the Italian national colors, at the top.
The road cars have a rectangular badge on the hood, see picture at top of page, and, optionally, the shield-shaped race logo on the sides of both front wings. Close to the door.
On 17 June 1923, Enzo Ferrari won a race at the Savio track in Ravenna where he met Countess Teolina, mother of Count Francesco Baracca, an ace of the Italian Air Force and national hero of World War I. Who used to paint a horse on the side of his planes.
The Countess asked Enzo to use this horse on his cars, suggesting that it would bring him good luck.
The original prancing horse on Baracca's airplane was painted in red on a white cloud-like shape, but Ferrari chose to have the horse in black, as it had been painted as a sign of grief. On Baracca's squadron planes after the pilot was killed in action, and he added a canary yellow background as this is the color of the city of Ravenna, his birthplace.
The Ferrari horse was, from the very beginning, markedly different from the Baracca horse in most details, the most noticeable being the tail, that in the original Baracca version was pointing downward.
Ferrari has used the Cavallino M20 on official company stationery since 1929.
Since the spot 24 hours of 9 July 1932, the Cavallino M20 has been used on Alfa Romeos, raced by Scuderia Ferrari.
The motif of a prancing horse is old. It can be found on ancient coins.
A similar black horse on a yellow shield is the coat of arms of the German city of Stuttgart, home of Mercedes-Benz and the design bureau of Porsche, both being main competitors of Alfa and Ferrari in the 1930s.
The city's name derives from Stuttgarten, an ancient form of the German word Gestet, which translates into English as stud farm and into Italian as Scuderia.
Porsche also includes the Stuttgart sign in its corporate logo, centered in the emblem of the state of Württemberg.
Stuttgart's Russell has both rear legs firmly planted on the soil, like Baracca's horse, but unlike Ferrari's Cavallino. Fabio Taglioni used the Cavallino M20 on his Ducati motorbikes, as Taglioni was born at Lugo di Romagna like Baracca, and his father too was a military pilot during World War I. Although not part of Baracca's squadron, as is sometimes mistakenly reported.
As Ferrari's fame grew, Ducati abandoned the horse, perhaps the result of a private agreement between the two companies.
The Cavallino M20 is the visual symbol of Ferrari.
Cavallino magazine uses the name, but not the logo.
Other companies use similar logos. Aventi, an Austrian company operating over 100 filling stations, uses a prancing horse logo, which is nearly identical to Ferrari's. As does Iron Horse Bicycles and Norfolk Southern Railway. Since the 1920s, Italian race cars of Alfa Romeo, Maserati and later Ferrari and Abarth were, and often still are, painted in race red, Rosso Corsa.
This was the customary national racing color of Italy, as recommended between the world wars by the organizations that later would become the FIA.
It refers to the nationality of the competing team, not that of the car manufacturer or driver.
In that scheme, French entered cars such as Bugatti were blue, German such as Auto Union and Mercedes white, since 1934 also bear sheet metal silver, and British green such as the mid-1960s Lotus and the RM, for instance.
Ferrari won the 1964 World Championship with Jean Surtees by competing for the last two races in North America with cars painted in the US American race colors white and blue. As these were not entered by the Italian factory themselves, but by the US-based North American Racing Team, NART team.
This was done as a protest concerning arguments between Ferrari and the Italian racing authorities regarding the homologation of a new mid-engine Ferrari race car.
In 1963, Enzo Ferrari was approached by the Ford Motor Company about a possible buyout.
Ford audited Ferrari's assets, but legal negotiations and talks were unilaterally cut off by Ferrari when he realized that the deal offered by Ford would not enable him to stay at the helm of the company racing program.
Henry Ford too consequently directed his racing division to negotiate with Lotus, Lola, and Cooper to build a car capable of beating Ferrari on the World Endurance Circuit, eventually resulting in the production of the Ford GT40 in 1964. As the Ford deal fell through, Fiat approached Ferrari with a more flexible proposal and purchased controlling interests in the company in 1969.
Enzo Ferrari retained a 10% share, which is currently owned by his son Piero Lardi Ferrari.
Ferrari has an internally managed merchandising line that licenses many products bearing the Ferrari brand, including eyewear, pens, pencils, electronic goods, perfume, cologne, clothing, high-tech bicycles, watches, cell phones, and laptop computers. Ferrari also runs a museum, the Museo Ferrari in Maranello, which displays road and race cars and other items from the company's history. In 1997, Ferrari launched a long-term master planned effort to improve overall corporate efficiency, production, and employee happiness.
The program was called Formula Uomo and became a case study in social sustainability.
It took over 10 years to fully implement and included over €200 million, 2008, in investment. Ferrari has had a long-standing relationship with Shell Oil.
It is a technical partnership with Ferrari and Ducati to test as well as supply fuel and oils to the Formula 1, MotoGP and World Superbike racing teams.
For example, the Shell V-Power Premium Gasoline Fuel has been developed with many years of technical expertise between Shell and Ferrari. Ferrari has had agreements to supply Formula 1 engines to a number of other teams over the years, and currently supply the Alfa Romeo and Haas F1 teams. As of the end of 2019, the total of Ferrari built and sold cars in their whole company history is 219,062. In January 2020, the Italian carmaker said it will recall 982 vehicles for passenger airbags due to the Takata airbag recalls.
If the inflator explodes, the airbag will spew metal shrapnel at passengers, which can cause severe injury.
Every car involved will get a new passenger side airbag assembly, complete with a new inflator without the dangerous propellant. On 8 August 2022, the company recalled almost every car it sold in the US since 2005 over a potential for brake failure.
According to an NHTSA recall filing, 23,555 Ferrari models sold in America are fit with a potentially faulty brake fluid reservoir cap that may not vent pressure adequately.
The fix is simple. Roughly 30 Ferrari boutiques exist worldwide, with 2 owned by Ferrari and the rest operating as franchises.
The stores sell branded clothes, accessories, and racing memorabilia.
Clothing includes upscale and lower-priced collections for men, women, and children. Some stores include race car simulation games for entertainment. There are currently 2 Ferrari-themed amusement parks in the world. Opened in 2010, Ferrari World Abu Dhabi is the first Ferrari-branded theme park in the world and boasts 37 rides and attractions.
Located on Yas Island in Abu Dhabi, it is home to the world's fastest roller coaster, Formula Rossa, and a dynamic coaster with one of the world's tallest loop, Flying Aces.
Opened in 2017, Ferrari Land in PortAventura World Resort is the second such Ferrari-themed amusement park in the world after Ferrari World Abu Dhabi.
With 16 rides and attractions, it is home to Europe's fastest and highest vertical accelerator coaster, Red Force.
And finally, we got some breaking news headlines. The 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh War was an armed conflict in the disputed region of Nagorno-Karabakh and the surrounding territories 2 years ago.
The 2021 Taliban Offensive, also known as the Summer Offensive, was a military offensive by the Taliban insurgent group and other allied militants against the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan that led to the fall of the republic, based in Kabul, and marked the end of the nearly 20-year-old war in Afghanistan that had begun following the United States invasion of the country.
And Elizabeth II, Queen of the United Kingdom and the other Commonwealth realms, and the longest reigning British monarch, died at the age of 96 at Balmoral Castle in Aberdeenshire, Scotland. The 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh War was an armed conflict in the disputed region of Nagorno-Karabakh and the surrounding territories.
It was a major escalation of an unresolved conflict over the region, involving Azerbaijan, supported by Turkey and foreign mercenary groups, and Armenia. Along with the breakaway Republic of Artsakh, with an Armenian ethnic majority but internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan.
The war lasted for more than a month and resulted in Azerbaijan victory after a ceasefire agreement signed with Armenia ceding land near Nagorno-Karabakh.
The defeat in war ignited protests in Armenia calling for the resignation of government.
Post-war skirmishes continued in the region, including substantial clashes in 2022. The fighting began on the morning of 27 September 2020 with an Azerbaijan offensive along the line of contact established in the aftermath of the First Nagorno-Karabakh War, 1988 to 1994. With a primary goal of reclaiming the less mountainous districts of southern Nagorno-Karabakh, which were easier to take than the region's well-fortified interior.
In response, Armenia and Artsakh introduced martial law and total mobilization, while Azerbaijan introduced martial law, a curfew, and partial mobilization.
Turkey provided military support to Azerbaijan, although the extent of this support has been disputed.
Turkey's involvement is thought to have been an attempt to extend its sphere of influence, both by giving Azerbaijan the upper hand in the conflict and by marginalizing Russia's influence over the region. The war
was marked by the deployment of drones, sensors, long-range heavy artillery and missile strikes, as well as by state propaganda and the use of official social media accounts in online information warfare.
particular, Azerbaijan's widespread use of drones was seen as crucial in determining the conflict's outcome.
Numerous countries and the United Nations strongly condemned the fighting and called on both sides to de-escalate tensions and resume meaningful negotiations.
Three ceasefires, brokered by Russia, France, and the United States, failed to stop the conflict.
Following the capture of Shusha, the second largest city in Nagorno-Karabakh, a ceasefire agreement was signed between the President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev, the Prime Minister of Armenia Nikol Pashinyan, and the President of Russia Vladimir Putin. Ending all hostilities in the area from 10 November 2020.
The President of Artsakh, Arik Harakyanyan, also agreed to end hostilities.
Under the agreement, the warring sides kept control of the areas they held within Nagorno-Karabakh at the time of the ceasefire, while Armenia returned the surrounding territories it had occupied since 1994 to Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan will also gain transport communication to its Nakhchivan exclave bordering Turkey and Iran.
Approximately 2,000 Russian soldiers have been deployed as peacekeeping forces along the Latin corridor connecting Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh, with a mandate of at least 5 years.
Following the end of the war, an unconfirmed number of Armenian prisoners of war were captive in Azerbaijan, with reports of mistreatment.
Despite calls for their immediate release by the EU and international organizations, Azerbaijan has filed criminal charges against them.
Armenia filed a case against Azerbaijan at the International Court of Justice in September 2021, with hearings taking place in October 2021 in The Hague.
The war has been referred to as the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War and has been called the 44-Day War in both Armenia and Azerbaijan. In Armenia and Artsakh, it has been called the Second Artsakh War, Patriotic War, and the Fight for Survival. In Azerbaijan, it has been called the Second Karabakh War and Patriotic War.
The Azerbaijan government referred to it as an Operation for Peace Enforcement and Counter-Offensive Operation.
It later announced it had initiated military operations under the code name Operation Iron Fist. The 2021 Taliban Offensive, also known as the Summer Offensive, was a military offensive by the Taliban insurgent group and other allied militants against the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan that led to the fall of the republic, based in Kabul, and marked the end of the nearly 20-year-old war in Afghanistan that had begun following the United States invasion of the country.
The Taliban victory had widespread domestic and international ramifications regarding human rights and proliferation of terrorism.
The offensive included a continuation of the bottom-up succession of negotiated or paid surrenders to the Taliban from the village level upwards that started following the February 2020 US-Taliban deal. The offensive began on 1 May 2021, coinciding with the withdrawal of the United States' 2,500 troops in Afghanistan and those belonging to other international allies.
Large numbers of armed civilians, including women, volunteered with the Afghan army in defense, while some former warlords, notably Ismail Khan, were also recruited.
Despite this, the Taliban managed to make significant territorial gains in the countryside, increasing the number of districts it controlled from 73 to 223 in the first 3 months of the offensive.
On 6 August, the Taliban launched an assault on the provincial capitals, with most of the towns surrendering without a fight, culminating with victories in weeks-long battles of major cities Herat, Kandahar and Lashkargah on 13 August.
On 15 August, President Ashraf Ghani fled the country and the Taliban captured the Afghan capital Kabul without resistance. Thus, the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan's government fell, resulting in the de facto takeover of the country and the reinstatement of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan.
The Taliban's takeover came as a surprise to many governments, including those of the United States and their allies, Russia and others.
Factors prior to May 2021 included the Taliban's effective use of online social media, its strategical choice of attacking northern provinces, and the Taliban's freedom of movement on the main Afghan highways that resulted from the Afghan National Security Forces, ANSF, following the U.S. recommended strategy of sacrificing rural areas in favor of defending key urban centers.
Factors in the ANSF loss to the Taliban included the February 2020 and April 2021 drops in U.S. support, in which technical, proprietary software and logistics support, in particular aerial support, that the ANSF had been trained to depend on, were suddenly removed.
Errors in U.S. coalition training of the ANSF were seen as a factor, along with Afghan police extorting locals and military officers funding themselves by inventing ghost soldiers in the months of unpaid ANSF salaries that followed the April 2021 switch in ANSF salary management to Afghan military administration.
Cronyism in ANSF military appointments and President Ashraf Ghani's inability to create an effective national consensus and convince local warlords were also seen as key processes of the ANSF's defeat.
Afghans are also more loyal towards their traditional ethnic, tribal and even familial ties than they are to a central government in Kabul, which the provincial Taliban commanders exploited to negotiate surrender of many troops.
In the long term, the American invasion of Iraq and its shifting in focus to that region has also been cited as a reason for the Taliban's resurgence in the mid to late 2000s.
In September 2020, over 5,000 Taliban prisoners, including 400 accused or convicted of major crimes such as murder, were released by the Afghan government as part of a U.S. Taliban deal between the United States and the Taliban.
According to Afghanistan's National Security Council, many of the released prisoners who were experts returned to the battlefield and strengthened the Taliban's hand.
Also, by the time of Taliban's final offensive, most of the Afghan provincial governors had cut deals with the militants to switch sides and join the Taliban.
A senior Afghan Interior Ministry official, quoted by the Washington Post, said that Taliban have recruitment teams that reach out to Afghan officials and push them to join the Taliban.
He said that Afghan government suspects that a long list of governors might have Taliban ties. And finally, on 8 September 2022, at 15:10 o'clock British Summer Time, Elizabeth II, Queen of the United Kingdom and the other Commonwealth realms, and the longest reigning British monarch, died at the age of 96 at Balmoral Castle in Aberdeenshire, Scotland.
Her death was publicly announced at 18:30 o'clock British Summer Time.
She was succeeded by her eldest child, Charles III. The Queen's death set in motion Operation London Bridge, a collection of plans including arrangements for her funeral, including Operation Unicorn, which set protocols for the Queen's death occurring in Scotland.
The United Kingdom observed a national mourning period of 10 days.
The Queen lay in state in Westminster Hall from 14 to 19 September, during which time an estimated 250,000 people queued to pay their respects. A state funeral service was held at Westminster Abbey on 19 September, followed by a committal service at St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle.
The Queen was interred within King George VI Memorial Chapel at St. George's.
The occasion of her state funeral was a public holiday in the UK and several Commonwealth states.
The state funeral was one of the United Kingdom's most watched special events, surpassing the wedding of Prince William and Catherine Middleton, the previous most watched royal event of the 21st century.
The Queen had been in good health for most of her life but began to decline after the death of her husband, Prince Philip, on 9 April 2021.
The most visible sign of this was that the Queen began to use a walking stick for public engagements in October 2021.
On 20 October, the Queen stayed overnight in King Edward VII's Hospital in central London, requiring scheduled visits to Northern Ireland and the COP26 summit in Glasgow to be cancelled.
She also suffered from a sprained back in November, which prevented her from attending the 2021 National Service of Remembrance.
In February 2022, during the COVID-19 pandemic in England, the Queen was one of several people at Windsor Castle to test positive for COVID-19.
Her symptoms were described as mild and cold-like, and she later commented that the disease does leave one very tired and exhausted.
The monarch's health became a cause of concern to commentators at this time. The Queen was said to be feeling well enough to resume her official duties by 1 March 2022 and attended the service of Thanksgiving for Prince Philip at Westminster Abbey on 29 March.
Despite this, the Queen did not attend several appointments over the following months, including the annual Commonwealth Day service in March, the Royal Maundy service in April, the state opening of Parliament in May, and the National Service of Thanksgiving for her Platinum Jubilee in June.
During the Jubilee, the Queen also suffered discomfort after standing during Trooping the Colour and was largely confined to balcony appearances during the celebrations. 2 days before her death, on 6 September 2022, the Queen accepted the resignation of Boris Johnson and appointed Liz Truss to succeed him as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. These meetings took place at Balmoral Castle rather than their usual location at Buckingham Palace.
On 7 September, she was scheduled to attend an online meeting of the Privy Council of the United Kingdom to swear in new ministers in Truss's government, but this was cancelled after she was advised to rest by doctors.
The Queen's final public statement, issued that same day, was a message of condolences for the victims of a mass stabbing incident in Saskatchewan, Canada. The Queen died at 10 o'clock British Summer Time on 8 September.
Her death was publicly announced 3 hours later at 18:30 o'clock.
The death certificate, which was made public on 29 September, stated the cause of death as old age.
Elizabeth II was the first British monarch to die in Scotland since James V in 1542.
Members of the royal family traveled to Balmoral Castle throughout the day.
Prince Charles arrived at 10:30 o'clock and was met by Princess Anne, who was already staying with the Queen.
Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, also traveled to Balmoral from the Berkeley estate.
Charles and Anne were with the Queen when she died.
Prince William, Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, and Sophie, Countess of Wessex, left RAF Norfolk on board a flight to Aberdeen Airport and arrived at Balmoral shortly after 17 o'clock, while Prince Harry, who had traveled alone and departed later than the other family members, arrived at Balmoral at 20 o'clock. Catherine and Meghan did not join them. Prime Minister Liz Truss is believed to have been informed of the Queen's declining health that morning by the Cabinet Secretary, Simon Case, and received an update at 12 o'clock.
The leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, was informed by a note passed to him by Deputy Leader Angela Rayner during a speech he was giving in the House of Commons.
At 12:30 o'clock, Buckingham Palace made a public announcement expressing concern for the Queen's health. The Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, made a brief statement of good wishes in response. Truss was informed at 16:30 o'clock that the Queen had died, and the royal family announced her death 2 hours later via newswires and a post on Twitter.
The statement read:
The Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The King and the Queen Consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow.
A notice with the same statement was affixed to the railings outside Buckingham Palace and posted on the royal family website. BBC One continuously covered the Queen's condition from 12:40 o'clock after the first official statement, and special reports were also run on ITV, Channel 4 and Channel 5.
British television announcements of the Queen's death began at 18:31 o'clock, when news presenter Hugh Edwards read the royal family's statement during a live broadcast on the BBC News channel and BBC One.
At 18:32 o'clock, the presenters of BBC Radio 4 and BBC Radio 5 live made similar announcements.
On LBC, Andrew Marr briefly lost his composure and became emotional while announcing the Queen's death.
After the announcement, the Union flags at Buckingham Palace and 10 Downing Street were lowered to half-mast.
At Balmoral Castle, the royal standard of the United Kingdom was lowered and then raised again as the new king was present.
The Royal Banner of Scotland was lowered to half-mast at the Palace of Holyrood, as was the Welsh flag at Cardiff Castle.
Huge crowds gathered outside royal residences, and rainbows were seen above Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle. Here's a video clip from announcement of the death of the Queen on the BBC's television channels, read by Hugh Edwards.
The BBC is interrupting its normal programmes to bring you an important announcement. This is BBC News from London. Buckingham Palace has announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. In a statement, the palace said the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The King and the Queen Consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow. BBC Television is broadcasting this special programme reporting the death of Her Majesty the Queen.
That's it for today. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell button so you don't miss out any of the new videos, and we will see you in episode 6.